and bodies, and it goes on and on and on. Now he's doing Spider-Man and Jesus Christ Superstar, so maybe he'll do it next year. So I have to say I am a little nervous right now, so I'm going to have a little hit here. So let's just go to the Q&A. I'll forget all this stuff. How's that? Any questions? So, no, listen, I'd like to thank Gary Smith and Steve McFadden and everybody at, of course, at the Pollstar staff and all you people for coming. I mean, I think we've actually done more people today than Kanye West did here. So, I like Kanye. He's okay. So I'd like to see how many managers are here. You can raise your hands that are managers. That's a very poor turnout for managers, I can tell you that. How many promoters are here? There you go. Agents? Building managers? That's more of them. Ticket scalpers? See, there you go. There you go. And who just came to get free drinks and food? There you go. I like you guys. So I was thinking about what I was going to say and talk about, and it was going to be about ticket pricing and all the stuff that you guys already know about. And obviously in the next 3 days you've got 100 geniuses on all these panels that'll be able to answer all that stuff for you. So what I'm going to do is just talk about management and the evolution of management. And so people call me every day and they say to me, so what are you up to? And I go, well, trying to make everybody's dream come true. And so they laugh, but it's really, that's what it's about for us. It's you know, when you get into management, there's no real book or there's no real schooling that you get when you start. So when I started, I was kind of like thrown into the fire. I had no idea what management was. So in my brochure of management, it didn't have that you had to be the father of a dysfunctional family or a psychiatrist or a marriage counselor or the dog whisperer or the enabler, or probably worst thing, a role model. Because nobody wanted to see their manager in the hallway of the hotel with his underwear on his head. So anyways, I started out in the music business as a guitar player, and I was like 16 years old. And my first show that I saw was Stevie Wonder, and that kind of changed my life. And then actually that same year, I saw the Beatles on the Ed Sullivan Show, and that's when I knew that my path was going to be music. My parents wanted me to be a football player, but of course I was a little short for that. And also basketball, but all my brothers and stuff were athletes, and I traded in my helmet and spikes and everything for a Les Paul. So anyways, I got out of high school, went to college, tried to start a band in college, and before I could get it going, I was drafted. So went to the Army, got out, went back to school, and it was just too cold in Chicago. I said, no, I'm not going to make it. So I left Chicago, went down to Florida with my best friend, found a girl down there, met a girl. She was a waitress at a Lum's restaurant, and which is, if you don't know Lum's, it's a kind of a very high-end fast food restaurant where they actually have hot dogs soaked in beer. So at any rate, we had musicians and everybody that would come in, and I got to meet everybody. And so when the restaurant was closed at 10 o'clock, I would get on my motorcycle and I would drive to the studio, and I would play in sessions and meet all the musicians. And it was very quickly before I met Barry Mraz and some of the guys from the Average White Band, and we put together a band called Night Flight, and which had a hit right away on Areola. And then I was a manager, whatever that meant. Because you don't know, like I said, you say you're a manager and you get put into these categories, and it's like a doctor. You're a doctor, but there's doctors that cure people, and there's doctors that kill people. So in management, you've got managers and you got damagers. So you got to kind of work through that. Well, I ended up going up to New York and got with Rick Stevens, a friend of mine, and we loved R&B music, so we started managing James Brown and Isaac Hayes and Mink DeVille, and disaster. I mean, I'm not sure we managed them or they managed us at that time. But it was a very interesting time in my life. And there was a management company up there called Lieber and Krebs. And Steve Lieber and David Krebs. And David Krebs was like my mentor. He kind of changed my life in one sentence. We're talking about managing, and he was managing everybody in the world at the time. And so I said, so what is management? He says, well, I'll tell you what. It's how you manage an artist. You either manage them at the throat or you manage them at the feet. If you manage them at the feet, they'll kick your teeth in right away, okay? If you manage it at the throat, you have a chance to hang on until they beat you down to the stomach, and you hold on as long as you can, and then they push you down and kick your teeth out. So I thought, well, this sounds like a fun business. Excuse me, I almost spilled this. So at any rate, so I loved R&B music, but then I found this band called the Pat Travers Band, which Sandy right here was the drummer in. And it kind of changed my philosophy of music, because I was kind of a music snob. I loved R&B music, and I was kind of into that stuff. And so now I didn't really understand the rock side of it. And so anyways, as we started going, what really changed my life was signing a band in 1982 called Motley Crue. And what that taught me was connection and what people see in bands. And it's not about a song, and it's not about anything but connection, because I could tell you when I listened to them, and that was one of my wife's and I's first date, was Motley Crue New Year's Evil, which is always a big point when you want to go out for the first time. And so anyways, but I couldn't even understand what they were playing. I mean, they were so terrible. And I was sitting there and I just watched them blow up shit and roll around, and then I was sitting there going, Jesus, what's this? But I saw 3,000 kids that went absolutely crazy for them. Bought every piece of merchandise they had, and it was hysteria. But that's when I changed, and I found out that I'm in the music business. I'm not a music snob, okay? I'm not the guy that sits there and goes, well, you better change that chorus and the bass line should be, that's not me. That's what they do. They connect. They have to connect with people. That's what all of us have to do, is find those people that connect to our audiences to have them come. And so we've changed the philosophy since 1982 of trying to be Clive Davis of the management business and become a connection artist, to find artists that only connect. That's the true thing. I mean, it's bad enough when I say it, but if there was a squirrel sitting right here and everybody wanted to see the squirrel, I'd manage the squirrel. It's just you know, I'm in the music business. Okay, I'm not I'm not in the art business. And so then, as I started that theory, it was very easy for me to find bands like Bon Jovi, because I could walk in a second and see the connection that he had with his audience. That I could see bands like the Scorpions. I could find bands like Skid Row that had that connection with the fans. Not that I liked it. It wasn't like I'd get my wife and say, let's get a glass of wine and put Shout at the Devil on, you know? So it wasn't one of those things for us. And so you learn that connection is the most important thing. So in that, we go into this 80s mode where 70s, all we did was tour. That's what bands did. We didn't care if we got a song on the radio, because half the time we couldn't get it on the radio, and so all we did was tour around the world. At that time, you could sell 250,000 records and do 15,000 people. You know, it was just that way. In the 80s, it kind of switched to where it was all radio-driven, MTV-driven. Everything had to be that. But luckily, I had all those bands, by luck, because it was just understanding the connection process. And so my bands connect. So of course, as I look around and I'm pretty successful, and I see all the people putting together Live Aid and Bangladesh and Save the Whales and Fuck the Fish and whatever kind of shows that they put on, but there was one every year or something. It was kind of monumental. So, I said, what can we do as rock bands? And so I thought in about 1986, I decided I wanted to be the first rock show in the Soviet Union. So we decided that we were going, which is, pretty simple, because they were putting kids in prison for listening to that music, which I didn't know, by the way. But since I made it up, I said, okay, we just have to go do this. So anyways, we put together that in 1989, and we just had 641 people, 2 jets painted by Peter Max, 64 tractor trailers going to Moscow with no permits. We had no permits. All I had was stamps in Russian. Stas Nauman, who was my partner, he says, they won't know what it is. Just stamp this shit. So it's kind of fun. So we didn't know if we were going to get arrested when we got there, or if they were going to, because nobody gave us permission. We had no permission. But anyways, it turned out to be a monumental show, which was one of our goals in the 80s to do, and really solidified rock and roll and exactly what those kids were starving to do. Because back then they didn't have the internet. They didn't have the things they were trading cassettes on corners of Black Sabbath and stuff like that. So, of course, I brought the model citizens to represent us, like Ozzy and Sebastian Bach, Bon Jovi, and of course Motley Crue, which are, like almost ambassadors around the world of terror. So, at any rate, we go back in. So now the importance of management is not as important as it is today in the scheme of things. Management is where we, all of us, are partners. Okay, and I look out here and I see Nick Karras and all the people that I worked with for 30-some years, that we're all partners as agents, promoters, that I could call probably 150 around the world, that everybody had this close-knit thing. They would call me up and I'd go, well, we got to play, Pittsburgh on Wednesday or something, and Rich Engler would call me up and say, what are you, nuts? You can't play here. We have a festival or something like this. And so we got input from all of our partners around the world. It has drastically changed today. Okay, we no longer have that intimate partnership in promoters around the world. We have conglomerates that book things from distances. We have more money thrown around, so agents don't have to do anything but say, well, how about 100 grand more and we'll do it. You know what I mean? So it's not like we did it in the old days. But it's still a very important part for us as managers and as promoters and as building managers and everything is to start thinking about our fans, the people that actually pay our bills. We're a parasitic business, all of us, okay? And we live off these people, and we really don't give a shit about them, okay? We torture them. Okay, we make them drive 45 minutes out of town in a mosquito-infested place, and then we charge them from the time they pull off the highway. Okay, I'm surprised that we don't charge them for air to breathe. There's nothing left that we haven't charged them for. You know what I mean? And as you will find out in your other meetings today, that the answer to that, because I don't have it, but I know there's 100 geniuses that are coming in to sit on panels that will tell us all how to do it, and I'll watch some of it. But I think that's what we have to do is really think about fan experiences in the buildings, trying to get fans more into what we're doing. I mean, the number one thing that has never changed in the 40 years that I've been here is how do you sell something? The biggest seller is word of mouth. That's why you go to movies. That's why you go buy records. That's why you go buy clothes. It's word of mouth. We are just in a society today that the technology has given us the ability to reach a lot more people and tell more people about it. So we have to improve our knowledge of technology and learn how to bring that in and work with the fans to make them part of us. As signing KISS, who's a whole different ballgame with those guys. But, you know, they understand it. They understand that they have to have fan connection. These guys will do 500 meet and greets before a show. When I got them, you'd have to take a 12-gauge shotgun in Paul Stanley's mouth to drag him out to be the cripple kid. You know what I mean? It's just that wasn't part of their culture, you know. So we're trying to break that down, and for all my artists, you know, it has to be fan orientated. Now in Nashville, the country scene, and I've been here 9 years, been coming here 30 years, but, you know, opened an office here 9 years ago. That fanfare and everything that we do here is unprecedented. You have 300,000 people, 400,000 people that come to this town to meet their star, their country star. And you see these guys, well, hell, come on in. In the rock world, that would never happen. You could never get them to do it. And I think that that's one of the things that we have to change. I think what we have to do is engage our fans and keep them coming to our buildings. Doing better buildings is just because you put up a new, you know, big screens and whatever is not a fan experience. It's basically going back to what Bill Graham did. Bill Graham went to San Francisco with 1/3 the population of Los Angeles and did 3 times the tickets of Los Angeles because he had people that wanted to come to a Bill Graham show. And if you ask Bill, it wasn't your show, it was his show. So it wasn't Journey, it wasn't Bon Jovi, it was Bill Graham. And I think that that's where we have to go in today. And then think it's time for another drink. I was getting bored with that. So anyways, I think that what I'm going to do is open this up to a few questions before I finish up, because I think it's important, instead of for me to just talk to you, is for you to ask me questions about something that you might think I know something about. So if we have some questions. So you're very interested in this, I see it. Okay. I think we have some. Oh, no, not moonshine. I can't do that stuff. No, just a little vodka, that's all. Well, I mean, yes. I mean, before we used to tour to support an album. Now we do an album to support the tour. You know, it's completely different. I have a band called Vintage Trouble, and that band is not traditional, but it's who they are. It's things that we believe in and we don't change. So I knew they couldn't get on radio, so I took them to England 2.5 years ago, and I think they've done about 300 shows in the last 2.5 years in 59 countries, and now are breaking because of their live performances. And so I think that's a testament of what you were just saying. I think we're back to, in the records, we're back to 1964 as singles. You know, and that's only going to be for a little while, because that's all going to go to Spotify's and Beats, and, you know, people won't own music, they'll rent music. So, yeah, I do believe that it's all about your touring strengths, and that's all we sign. You know, we want to sign bands. We just signed a band called 1,000 Horses, which probably nobody knows about. But they do 80, 90 shows a year. You know, they'll drive 250 miles for a $200 gig. And I think that's where we're back to, what we did before. You know, we'll pay toilets and use our own change. You know? Well, I mean, you have these, you know, you have these companies that actually turned their head to the internet and stuck their head in the sand. And the heads of these companies, when the Napster kids came out and said, here, and they put 5 computers on a table and they said, here's a song, watch this, boom, and it was on all 5 of their computers. Instead of embracing that, they said, get out of here, we'll sue you. And then it turned into, it's free on the internet. And these kids took and trained generations of kids that it was okay to take music off the internet. With that said, the record labels didn't figure out that they were a buggy whip company, and the car came out. Okay, now they got to figure out what to do with the buggy whips. So they said, oh, this is simple. We won't market and promote them unless we get a piece of everything in the 360 deals. There's something to be said for it if they could actually do something for it. But all they do is say, we want the income. We don't know how to manage. They want to be an entertainment company with a management component. Okay, but they don't have the management component. You know, they hire a kid and they go, you're the manager of this band. or a record executive gets fired, and he says, well, what are you going to do? Well, I think I'll manage. Well, that's like playing basketball in your driveway and going out to get in the NBA. Because you just get murdered. Okay, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen for those people. It's already been proven by 19 and the rest of the companies that are all for these television shows that do the 360s that don't know how to market and promote. So on the 360 deals, I think it's going to be the record companies are going to have to turn into these marketing companies in order to get people to sign the 360 deals. I know we don't do them, and I think that eats into what we do and what the publisher does. So, I'm not against the 360 deal if you can do something for them. Yeah, outside of radio. Well, I can't really tell you. I know when they took the makeup off, there must have been some plan. It's not a good one. It's like Superman saying, well, I'm really Superman, but I'm Clark Kent. You know what I mean? So that was a little tough. And then they came out with the fox and the squirrel or whatever they had there for a while. But for those years, Gene would always call me and say, I want to talk to you about KISS. And I go, are you putting the makeup on? You go, no. I said, there's nothing to talk about. Okay. You either put the makeup on or you don't. And so anyways, in 1995, he called and I said, you putting the makeup on? And he said, nothing. And so I said, okay, now I know you're doing it. I drove over to his house and that's how it all started. So. All right, I'll have another drink while you guys are talking.
KISS is one of the most brilliant marketed distributors around town. Did you take a part in that, or did you lead that?
That the marketing part of KISS it's a team effort. Okay. When I got them in 1995, they had 2 licenses. Since 1995, we had over 2,300 licenses in 190 countries. So it's kind of like KISS is KISS is one of those bands like they can't do something that's too kooky. Like Led Zeppelin wouldn't have a snowflake ball. Okay, or a bowling ball, or a tie, or a casket. But KISS somehow, because they're not dissimilar to the Power Rangers or to something like that, but they are. It's actually KISS. Whether, and I was never a KISS fan at the beginning, and they know it. I was doing James Brown and Isaac Hayes and stuff, but I really respected their production ability. Okay, so when I first managed them, I'd be in there and Gene would go, so what should we play, Christine 16 or Detroit Rock City? And I go, well, which one do you blow the most shit up in? And they go, Detroit Rock City. I go, cool. Okay, that's what we're playing. So they're very, very good self-promoters. We just bought the LA KISS football team, the Arena Football League. And so we do brand extensions with Hello Kitty to, Family Guy to you name it. That's a phenomena how that works out. And probably I don't think there's another band in the world that could even come close to it because it's just so iconic. It's not just, nobody knows if it's Gene Paul or some people do, or if it's Ace and Peter or if it's whoever. And so it's just that's, like there's been 6 Green Hornets, there's been 8 Supermen, all that kind of stuff. So I think KISS can go on for as long as they do a great family show, with fire, explosion, and blood.
Most of these conferences, managers, agents, and folks talk about, the good old days and relationships, but they're still selling their shows to Live Nation and these other big syndicates. How does a younger, independent promoter and/or venue stand a chance to create that new relationship because they do care about the fan experience when everyone's chasing the dollar? Or older.
Yeah, I mean, I
have a chance to do something that everyone says they want, but they still go to the McGhee.
Well, you have to remember that they only go once you built them up, and then they poach you. Okay, whether it's Katy Perry or whether it's whoever, that they have somebody does 400 shows with Katie, and all of a sudden they throw a $75 million check at her, and she can't remember your name. Okay, and there's a saying called, if you take a starving dog in and make it prosperous, he will not bite you. And that's the principal difference between dog and man. So I think when you say that, I haven't sold a show to any of them exclusively. And depending upon what we do, we're going to go out with Def Leppard, and we're going to go out. We went out with Motley, and we did a lot of Live Nation shows because of the deals that we got, but not for guarantees. We had no guarantees, and we'll have no guarantees on this side. Okay, because I don't want guarantees. I want all the money. Okay, so when you're an independent, and it happens a lot though, if you're passionate about what you do and you work with somebody like a Vintage, or you work for somebody that's coming up and you're working with them, you'd have to be a complete scumbag to throw those people out of the loop. You just, my company would never even think of it. It's just not going to happen in my world. And I don't think it should in anybody's world. People that work for what they do deserves to do it. Because the other thing is that when people throw a lot of money at you, you only see the lot of money. You don't see what that does in the end. If you really broke it down by show by show by show and cost and everything else, you'd make more money if you didn't do the deal. It's just that the big number, the manager, the agent, everybody else goes, oh, I don't have to do any work. It's a lot of money. Bam, boom, we're out. They don't know that you go into one of these buildings and you're getting charged as much as you are to play the garden, because you're not focusing on expenses or anything like that. You're focusing on one end result number. And that's where I think everybody has to start refocusing on saying, how do we do it? Because when you say, okay, I'm going to take X amount of dollars, now we are the villains of the ticket price. Okay, we are the ones that are changing that whole double the business that he was doing, because he had to lower ticket price for somebody to come in and to come and see his shows. And so again, when you ask for those big dollars, you got to pay the penalty for it. They're just not sending it out there because they're trying to lose money. So on the independent, I say you stick with the band. Find it. That's one of my biggest arguments is that why doesn't somebody take a Vintage, a Rival Sons, some great Papa Roach, some great bands that are out there, and get behind them and work them through their territories. And the only reason why I can think of it is because everybody goes, well, as soon as I do all this work, and now I can make some money, they come in and poach me. You know, and I think that we all have to be the police on this. You know, I love new promoters and new ideas. I love my interns that come in and have much better ideas than I do, okay? Because they're fresh and new and they know what they're talking about, right? I mean, they know what they're feeling in the marketplace. And I believe that that's a really, really important thing to do is to own your market space. Be the best promoter. And that's what it should come back down to. Not that it's a check. Who is the best promoter for your artist? Who's the best agent? I mean, all the agencies are good. It's just whether or not you have a great agent that's passionate about your artist. They're all great agents. You know, it's just whether they're passionate. Like I always say, I would rather have to manage my agent than to beg him to book my act. I'd rather sit there and have to manage him and say, hold on, you know, you're moving too fast, you're doing this, let's check the club, let's make sure that it's the right one, who played there the last 10 times. You know, we have a whole list of shit that we ask before you do a band, but I'd rather for the agent to be aggressive. And the only way you're going to be as a new promoter is to be aggressive. Is to make the calls. Andrew McManus, and who's a train wreck, but a good friend of mine in Australia, he came to me, and I had Gadinsky and everybody that were my promoters for years. And all of a sudden, Michael was kind of out of the business. He had sold Mushroom and all this stuff. And he came and bugged me and said, here's what we'll do, here's what we'll do, here's what we'll do. And guess what? The guy did it. And now he has KISS, and has had KISS for 10, 12 years. But he was just a local new guy in Australia, but had great ideas. So, you know, you just have to entrench yourself with an artist and hope that the manager, you know, that you picked the right horse to ride. You know, that's it. Well, I mean, it's always been hard for us because I never wanted to be in that position to where I didn't know what one of my artists were doing. So therefore, I can't have 400 artists. I can't rent desks to other managers to bring them in and say, okay, you're with me, and then you don't get to see me. You have no background, no backup from my staff. You have no marketing help. So you're just an island. You might as well be on your own. You know, except you can say, you know, like, I won't mention names, but people will come and say, well, I'll manage you. I'll be your day-to-day guy. Well, you got 400 acts. You're not the day-to-day guy. That's when you sign, that's the last time you'll see him, except at Christmas or something. But I don't believe it works. I don't see where you're not going to get better hall deals because you have more acts. The halls are the halls, and that's what they're going to do. You're not going to get more TV because they're not synergistically connected. So to me, it doesn't work for me. It works for them. You know, I don't want to be the biggest management company in the world. I'd like to be the most profitable. Okay, so we don't go in that direction. Everybody in my offices, in all my offices, work on every act. They have to know what's going on. You know, if Darius Rucker loses, is losing a sponsorship deal because the time ran out, we should have 3 other people in line for us to take that sponsorship over. And if nobody talks to each other, nobody knows. So that is just hard because it's hard to communicate with so many people. Well, I'm running out of shit to say here. No, I'm good. I'm good with that. So any other questions?
What recommendation do you have for us to make the plan more enjoyable and engaged?
Well, I think it's the fan experience from the time that you do contests to everything else to get them more in tune with what your promotions are. And also to make sure your buildings are safe, make sure that they're clean, they're healthy buildings. You're not gouging them for every cent, and make them feel like they're part of the community. That's about all I got on that. Well, we got about an hour and 15 to go here. Go ahead, Dick. Well, I mean, I think that American Idol and all The Voice and all the other 22 different shows, barking dogs and all that kind of stuff that they have. I mean, 15 years ago, if you were on the television and you had a television show, you couldn't get a record deal. Okay? Now you can't get one unless you have a television show. The problem with the TV shows for me is they understand that there's so much talent out there. There's so many talented people, okay? But they're not looking for talented people. They're looking for backstories, people with consequences, okay? So if you're a member of the Lucky Sperm Club where your family's rich and you can do whatever you want to, you have, I don't care what you sing like, you have zero chance of staying on these shows. You better have a sister with polio, a grandmother that's blind, the dog that's got on 3 legs. you had to, and if you don't get this, then they die. Okay, and because that's what TV shows are about, and it's about tugging the hearts of America or whatever country it is. The sad part about it is, and it's really good, is that nothing comes to these people. With all these shows, and they all have runner-ups, and they all have this, and they all have that, there's very few, you can probably name them on one hand, that became superstars from a television show. In 15 years. There's of all the shows that have been out there. So now what I'm hearing is, from the record labels, is now there's just a real fallback on those shows. Because by the time they pay Fuller and everybody else to get the rights to put them out, they're down $400,000 before they move, and they don't move very well, and they're managed by them. I'm not saying that all their people are bad, but I haven't seen any great moves from anybody. I mean, Carrie Underwood is just one of those exceptions that just is so great that she would have happened whether she was on American Idol or not. And the rest of them, I haven't seen them do anything else. So I'd have a hard time signing anybody from a TV show. Sam?
Doug, I think what sets you apart and the fact that you have such a small stable of artists and always had from experience, you take care of the musicians and the bands as a band, whether they're the artist or sidemen or whatever. And very few managers pay attention to that. To keep the musicians in the band behind the artist happy.
Yeah, I mean, well, I think there's just kind of like a process that you have to do to keep the ecosystem going. And you can't have disgruntled band members all the time and crews and, so we treat our stuff like a family. Everybody that's in our groups are part of the family. You know that you've been through it. And I think that's what really kind of separates us a little bit, from everybody else, because we do take pride. I just had to send a kid home that's been with us 17 years because he's had a severe drinking problem and whatever. But I didn't fire him. We just sent him home. We're paying him. He's got to go get help. And he's like my brother. I got one of those too. Okay, so we just all take care of each other. So at any rate, I said before about making everybody's dream come true. I think it's up to us to all stay together, to hang on together, to work together in order to accomplish that goal. It's not that hard. I think between all you, the building people and the promoters and the record labels and everybody else, if we could just sit and figure out how to do, how to keep together and all be synergistic together, I think it's possible for us to make a lot of people's dreams come true. Thank you.